Our next session delves into the untapped potential of blockchain technology, an innovation poised to optimize data management, revolutionize record keeping, and enhance citizen access to government services. At this point, to guide us through the intricacies of this revolutionary technology, I am delighted to introduce our next speaker. He currently serves as the general counsel at Yield Guild Games. Additionally, he played a pivotal role in establishing the Web3 Association Philippines and serves as legal counsel for various Web3 projects. Please join me in welcoming Attorney Nathan Marasigan.
All right. So blockchain, what is blockchain? It's a decentralized ledger, decentralized and distributed digital ledger that records transactions across multiple computers or nodes in a network. So 3 words: decentralized, distributed, and immutable. Okay? Kung wala kayong makuha sa buong lecture na to, yung tatlong yan lang that's already enough. And then you can go to other people and just say, oh, blockchain, I know exactly what that means. It's decentralized, it's distributed, and it's immutable, and it's a ledger, right? So, all right, let's start with decentralized. So unlike traditional centralized systems where a single authority controls the ledger, a blockchain operates on a decentralized network or node of nodes. Okay, these nodes work together to validate record transactions, ensuring that no single entity has complete control. Okay, ang daming words. Ang sinasabi lang yan is decentralized. There's no single authority. There's no single central authority that keeps a record. So if you think about it, just look back, big picture. Our society is built on ledgers. If you think about it, the money that you have in your pocket, right? You take that out, it's a piece of paper. It used to mean something, right? You go to a bank, you can redeem that piece of paper for gold. Diba? If you remember, there was a gold standard before in our history classes. Gold standard. Now, they abandoned that gold standard. Now, yung money na sa pocket nyo, it's the value of that is just controlled by supply and demand. And the main authority or regulatory agency that does that is the BSP, the central bank, right? But what the central bank really is, if you think about it, is a ledger of financial transactions. It's a ledger. Listahan siya ng lahat ng money in circulation, lahat ng money out of circulation, lahat ng money na nawala, na burn, lahat ng money na minint, di ba? In some countries, it's called the mint, right? If you have a central bank that's irresponsible, that's corrupt, what do? They just keep printing the money. What happens? You go to Venezuela, right? Bibili ka lang ng pandesal, dala-dala mo million na piso, di ba? That's why there's hyperinflation, right? So the Central Monetary Authority in the Philippines plays a very, very, very important role in controlling the value of that piece of paper in your pocket. The thing that we all, I'd like to think, work for. I mean, money is just a means, but that's what we work for, money. So if you look at the centralized ledger, this picture here, that's a centralized ledger. That's the central bank, diba? Distributed ledger, decentralized means hindi siya iisa lang point of failure mo. Okay, so in terms of security, there's no single point of failure and there's no central authority. And it's distributed. Yung next natin is distributed. So all nodes in the blockchain network maintain an identical copy of the ledger. Okay, so this distributed nature ensures that the data is highly resilient to failures and attacks. So there's no single point of failure. It also promotes transparency and trust. All right, so pretty clear. Decentralized, walang central authority. Distributed, marami, diba? Instead of isa lang. Okay. And then immutable. So once a transaction is added to a block and confirmed by the network, it becomes extremely difficult, mathematically and physically impossible to alter or delete. So the immutability of blockchain records is achieved through cryptographic hashing. Okay, so, all right, nosebleed. And the consensus mechanism used to validate transactions. Blockchain, from the word, it's a chain of blocks. Okay, so I'll go a bit technical here, but the general idea is you have what's called a genesis block. Diyan nagsisimula lahat. Now, every block consists of 3 things. There's this thing called a hash, which is a mathematical function. And then there's the data that's contained in that block. Okay, so what's an example of data? Kunyari ako. And then si Alvin, diba? So si Alvin of DAP, I have 1 Bitcoin. That's the data. Nathan has 1 Bitcoin. And then the next data that I have is Nathan gives that 1 Bitcoin to Alvin. That's data, okay? It goes through a mathematical function and becomes a hash. That hash is put in this block. Ngayon, magko-connect ka ng isa pang block dyan. Right? So the Genesis block is where it starts. Nathan has 1 Bitcoin. The next block, through cryptographic hashing, produces another block which has a hash of its own, unique, parang fingerprint yan eh. Okay, has a hash of its own, but that next block always contains the hash of the previous block. So para siya nakalink, nakatali siya, 'di ba? And then it contains the data. So okay, technical words, but really the second block will now say Nathan gave that 1 Bitcoin to Alvin. And then you hash that. Now Alvin bought a car. Alvin gave that 1 Bitcoin to Toyota. So these things, they just keep adding and you can't go back. The way it works is you cannot go back. It's immutable. You can't erase it. It's time stamped. Okay, so that's the technical part of this. Sige, so does anybody know what this is? Sari store. So that's my favorite thing. So I actually wrote a book about blockchain technology a few years ago kasi COVID, diba? Tapos wala tayong magawa. Naggawa tayo ng book kasi everyone asks me about this industry that I'm in and they're like, what is that? Because it doesn't make any sense. So you were a banker and then you quit it and then you became, went into crypto and blockchain and tech. So I always want to explain it in very, very simple terms. Now, if you have someone who's talking to you guys about blockchain and kahit anong sabihin niya, hindi niya talaga maintindihan, there's a chance he also doesn't know what he's talking about, right? So isipin natin to, Aling Nena Sari-Sari Store. Let's think about blockchain. Distributed, decentralized, and what's the third word? Immutable, right? Hindi nabubura. Aling Nena, punta ako dyan kay Aling Nena. Wala akong pera eh. Papalista muna ako. Palista muna Aling Nena. Now, Aling Nena has a copy of that listahan. That's a ledger. Okay? Now, imagine if Aling Nena's ledger wasn't just with Aling Nena. Everyone in the barangay had a copy of that ledger. Okay, ngayon, so isipin natin si Aling Nena medyo tuso siya, meron siyang anak, sabi natin, lagyan natin dito, ang utang ni Nathan sa akin, hindi talaga 5 pesos, gawin natin 5,000. So ngayon, pupunta ako dyan, teka lang, Aling Nena, alam ko 5 pesos lang utang ko sa'yo kasi candy lang binili ko, di ba? Ay, hindi, nakalagay sa ledger ko 5,000 eh. Teka lang, anong gagawin ko dyan? Fake yan, di ba? So there's a dispute. Now, imagine if that ledger was not decentralized. I was not centralized. It was decentralized. Everyone in the barangay had that ledger. Decentralized. Eh di ang gagawin ko lang, uy, ano bang nakasulat dyan sa ledger mo? Tama ba? 5,000 ba talaga? O 500 ba talaga? Di ba? 5 piso lang yan. Tapos iisa-isa mo, oh nga no? Okay, Aling Nela, sinungaling ka. Reject that transaction, right? Decentralized. Second, distributed. Yun. Lahat yan sila, meron nakikita. And then immutable. Oy, teka lang, nakita ko dito, may bura ka. Walang bura na pwede sa ledger. Yan ang blockchain technology in so many words. Decentralized, distributed, immutable. Am I making sense? Makes sense naman, no? Makes sense. Okay, so I'd like to show you guys this video. Can we play this video? Just to give you, just to sort of highlight what this technology really does. Okay, so if you think about cryptographic hashing and all of that, they made it so that it's mathematically impossible to erase, to parang reverse engineer that crypto hash. Every time, you can only add on top of that chain. So Genesis block, second transaction, third transaction, fourth transaction. Hindi mo pwedeng i-reverse engineer pababa. Mathematically, hindi pwede. Okay, so can we watch this video? There's a good explainer from the BBC that I think would also help.
When you want to buy something normally, using your normal bank card, this is what happens. I give my card details to the shop. The shop asks the bank if I'm good for the money. The bank checks its records to see if I've got enough in my account. If I do, it lets the shop know. It updates its records to show the movement of money from my account to the shop's. Oh, and it takes a little cut for its trouble. Now, if you wanted to remove the bank from that system, who else would you trust to keep those records and not alter them or cheat in any way? Well, I wouldn't trust you. I wouldn't trust you. In fact, I wouldn't trust any single person, but I might trust everyone. The idea is you don't have a central record of transactions. Instead, you distribute many, many copies of this ledger around the world. Each owner of each copy records every transaction. So, to buy something using cryptocurrency, I give the shop my details. The shop asks all the bookkeepers if I'm good for the money. The bookkeepers all check their records to see if I have enough. If I do, they tell the shop, and then all update their records to show the movement of money. So there's no way that a forged transaction can make it in. If I try to alter a ledger, it won't match all of the other copies, and it gets rejected. Oh, and one of them, at random, will be given a reward of some newly created cryptocurrency. This is how cryptocurrencies work. And remember, all of these bookkeepers, all of these ledgers, they're not actually people, they're computers. Lots of computers.
All right. So that makes even more sense, right? So this is Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. That's how it works. So if you think of Bitcoin, Bitcoin is the first use case. Okay, the whole logic behind the peer-to-peer transactions without a trusted third party. That's what makes Bitcoin revolutionary. Okay, think about it. Just think. Isipin nyo, ha? Banks. Do you know how I used to be a banker. Banks make so much money out of this, right? If you want to, di ba nga, my dad was like, okay, you want to be stable for your whole life, just work for a bank, right? Because being a trusted third party, central authority that vouches for everyone in that system, you are sure to take a cut. Now, if you're think about the millions and millions and millions of transactions that happened every day, literally every second. You take a small cut of that. That's why banks make bank. It's a word. I'm making bank, right? Now, think about it this way. Tanggalin mo yun. Tanggalin mo yung gitna na yun. You replace that with a computer program that doesn't care about cuts, right? I don't care about how much I make. I'm a computer program. I'm doing this, by myself, right? I am programmed to literally do the transaction, right? If you think about, zoom out, when this technology was invented, it was in 2008 and 2009. If you remember what happened in 2008, 2009, remember? The big fall of the big banks in the US, trust in centralized institutions was at an all-time low, right? So that's when this technology came out. Okay, so what? All right, so this is cool. That's nice. Okay, so what? Why should I care? Why should you care, right? Why should you guys listen to me blab here, right? This is a fact. The Philippines is a top crypto adopter. Okay, so we are, if you think about it, we are actually perfect for Web3 and crypto adoption. You know why? We're young, we're tech savvy, we're very interested in new technologies. Every time we adopt a new technology, it blows up. Texting, tayo nagpauso ng texting, di ba? Used to be SMS, we adopted it, SMS in capital. Facebook, Friendster, tayo social media capital. And this is well documented. Crypto is one of the top technologies that we are adopting. And this is, I'm not just making this up. So Chainalysis is one of the biggest blockchain research firms. 2022, we were number 2 only to Vietnam in terms of adoption, meaning we use cryptocurrency. Now, okay, so if you're not using cryptocurrency or if you haven't thought about it, you probably know someone who has. Think about the median age. Think about the median age in the Philippines. Do you know our median age is 25? Do you know the median age of Japan? 49. We are a very, very young, resilient population, and we are very much adopters of new technology. We are set to be, it's estimated in a few years, upper middle income, right? And cryptocurrency is driving this. In 2021, 20% of MetaMask users came from the Philippines. MetaMask is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, cryptocurrency wallet in the world. We are a population of 100 million. The world is 6 billion. 20% came from the Philippines just 2 years ago. 2022, Philippines was number 2. In 2023, Philippines was number 6 from the same study. But that doesn't mean it's lowered. It just means bumagal lang yung adoption natin. But we're still in the top 10. That means a lot still. The host would like me to unmute. Okay. Cryptocurrency wallet MetaMask hits 10 million global monthly active users with 20% coming from the Philippines. All right. Okay. Could you just do the next slide? Okay. So the Philippines is the top cryptocurrency adopter. In this same study, the Philippines is the 6th largest country in the Central, Southern Asia, and Oceania region that received cryptocurrency value. This is documented. $67.27 billion, not pesos, dollars, went into the Philippines and was received by the Philippines between September 2021 to September 2022. Okay? Just think about it. $67 billion, right? So I can explain why sobrang laki ng adoption natin. So in the Philippines, what happened 2020, 21, 22, you know what happened? COVID, di ba? Daming nawalan ng pera, daming nawalan ng trabaho. Suddenly, in like a small town in Cabanatuan, someone discovered this cryptocurrency play-to-earn game called Axie Infinity, started playing it, started realizing you could convert the in-game currency that you make while you're playing that cryptocurrency, convert that into fiat currency, which is Philippine peso, and you could make more than minimum wage during the pandemic. Now it's different, right? Bear market. But this was one of the first like forays into Web3 gaming, and Filipinos are the #1 adopters of that. Could you go to the next slide? So the Philippines is actually the epicenter of Web3 gaming. I know this because I'm a general counsel for the biggest Web3 gaming sort of company in the world. One of the biggest Web3 gaming communities in the world. And it was founded by 2 Filipinos. Right? And no one knows about it. No one, you know, it's very low key, but with the very young population, siguro maybe your kids or someone younger, they would know about Axie Infinity and these play-to-earn games, right? It was the birthplace of Web3 gaming adoption. Cabanatuan was actually the birthplace. There was as in like mga lolo, lola, tito, tita, lahat sila nasa bahay lang sila. During the pandemic, naglalaro lang sila nun and they would make more than minimum wage. An estimated 25% of Filipinos have played a Web3 game. 25% of our population have played a Web3 game. 40% of Axie Infinity's player base is based in the Philippines. 40% of the player base of this Web3 game is in the Philippines. 23% in Vietnam. Just to give you context, the game was invented in Vietnam. Right? So we are top adopters of this technology. Okay, so what? Second, I think this is most relevant to you. The blockchain will disrupt the way public services are delivered. If you think about it, what agency or what entity or what firm, right, is one of the most trusted, and we have to trust this? It's the government, right? In all these transactions, we have to trust the government, right? So think about the 3 things again: distributed, decentralized, immutable. Distributed, decentralized. Decentralized. Ano ba yung pinaka-central authority natin? Hindi ba mga government agencies? So depending on what your mandate is, what your agency does, you are usually a trusted central authority. With the technology that's coming, and it's already here, and it's growing, that is going into decentralization, right? So I think this deserves a second look, right? It's disrupting what I'm doing. It's disrupting lawyers, right? It's disrupting what I'm doing, just much the same way that AI is disrupting everything, right? But again, when you think about these things in disruption, I don't look at it as like, oh, they're going to take our jobs, right? No, it's I am going to have sort of to upskill myself and educate myself about this new technology and see how I can use this to better deliver the service that I am delivering right now. Okay, so I told you guys I did this rin, diba, the other day. So ito yung cloud na word cloud na nakita natin. Kanina what we saw was red tape. When I did it with the DICT and a bunch of other agencies, the biggest one was corruption. Procurement was another thing that they saw. Red tape was also there, voting, traffic, etc. These are some of the biggest problems that the Philippine public sector needs to address. And this came from another government blockchain 101 that I did. What do you think are the biggest challenges for adopting? And this came from public officials. I did a talk with government officials. The biggest one that they showed here was corrupt officials. That's pretty interesting. Funding, public policy, budget, procurement, and education. All right, so when you evaluate use cases, and I think this is relevant to what Yusek was saying, but the ICT has this overall horizontal sort of measures. When you provide your verticals or your services, you have the choice to determine whether a particular technology is useful for you. So don't think of innovation and technology as like, all right, this is it, my job is gone, right? Obviously, you're gonna think that. So when ChatGPT came out, one of my clients was like, oh, why do we still need you? We can have ChatGPT draft my agreements. Of course, you're like, oh my God, right? But if you think about it, it just reduces the time I spent originating documents. Because if you think about these AI models, they're just large language models. They don't have a brain of their own. That's what we have to think of. These things are tools. Gagamitin ko to para maging mas magaling na abogado. In fact, hindi na ako mag-spend ng time originating. Meaning, thinking of a document, I just put it ChatGPT, originate this based on these vectors and these data inputs. You come up with that, you just use that first draft and then you improve on it. That's how you think of it, right? So blockchain technology, you think about pain points and solutions, pain points in your agency that you think could be solved by a technology like this. So some of the few things these are some of the things that we try to ask, right? So does this project require transparency and trust? If yes, okay, move on to the next. Do we need to ensure data immutability? Meaning, sure na, diba, hindi siya nababago, hindi siya na-edit. And then if that's also yes, do we need to ensure data redundancy and decentralization? Meaning you have many sort of repositories of that data. If all of these apply, then maybe a blockchain solution could be for your agency. Now, if one of those don't apply, then maybe you can also obtain another technology for that, right? So I'm not here saying blockchain solves everything, right? It doesn't, definitely, but it does solve these sort of vectors though. Yeah. Okay, so we have another speaker later on use cases, but I will run through a few lang in other countries. But he's a friend of mine, actually. I don't think he's here yet. Engineer Navalan. He's going to talk about blockchain used in e-signing, I think. So use cases, land registry. So obviously land registries, right? I also have land in somewhere, right? But register of deeds, I handled the case before na basically we were disputing that land title. Kasi what happens, intercalating yung, alam mo yun, RD, kaibigan mo, babayaran mo ng konti under the table, sisingit, di ba? And these are all based on paper. Now, if you think about that, what's the problem? Delays, fraud, destruction of records, right? In third world countries, developing countries such as ours, masira lang yung RD. Yung basis ng lahat ng pinaghirapan mo or ng family mo, it's gone, right? Solution, a transparent, immutable ledger showing all property transactions. This is in Georgia, I believe. So they started this 2017. They continue to do this now. With every sort of country that does this, it's always, you have to test it out first. Proof of concept. You test it out in sort of, they call it a sandbox sometimes. It's a sandbox. When you're playing there, you're testing. You sometimes have the help of the regulators. And then you experiment in a controlled environment, right? And see how that affects your constituents, how that affects the public that you serve. Okay, so they're doing it already in Georgia, but also a number of other countries. So Brazil, they already started testing that. Land register offices in 2 municipalities. There's also Sweden. They're already exploring the use of blockchain technology, and also the UAE. In Brazil, I believe may mga overlaps yung agency, so it's very sort of inefficient. One agency would have a different ledger, would have a different record of that land transaction, and then another would not, right? So Georgia, that was also the biggest problem, corruption also. Because they also had overlaps in their agencies and the functions of the regulatory agencies that controlled land titles and deeds in Georgia. Okay, so the mandate came from the top. No more corruption in Georgia. look at this technology, proof of concept, go in yan, study. Academic studies came out on it. Oh, this is how we started it. This is how we expanded it. All right. This is pretty obvious, right? Voting, right? Voting, cheating, voting, all that. What's the problem? Concerns over vote manipulation, transparency, and security. What's the solution? A tamper-proof, verifiable voting system ensuring every citizen's vote counts. Okay, they're already exploring this in a couple of prefectures in Japan, cities there. I believe there are two cities. There's a Japanese firm, also Layer X Labs. There were successful pilots already of this. So there's Kaga Ishikawa Prefecture. And then they also tried this already in the states, couple of states there, Michigan Democratic Party Convention. Okay, so not yet like national, right? But they start, like I said, we test proof of concept. You prove that concept in a limited environment, not without issues. Of course, may mga controversies yan, may parang, oh, ano nangyari dyan, may mga questions, but nothing's perfect. The thing with innovation is you have to experiment. You don't be so afraid to step outside the box and do something. If you think about the ends that you're going for here, it'll make your job easier. It's better for the country, right? You're removing corruption. You're removing the need for reliance on a trusted third party, over reliance on a trusted third party, and overall the whole country benefits. So experiment, right? Innovate. All right. Japan. Okay, this one, Indonesia. This is very important because Indonesia is sort of similar to us. They did the same thing with a startup, blockchain startup that I also talked to, and I wanted to introduce them to the Philippines too, but of course that takes some time. What they did, so in Indonesia, 125 million registered voters, not their population, registered voters, 125 million. Largely, a lot of this is still paper ballots. Paper pa rin sila as of 2019, 2018. So isipin mo, 125 million paper ballots. What happens is, okay, so per presinto nila, calculate nila lahat. Okay, presinto, pipicturean nila. Okay, picture. Si send sa WhatsApp. So now, what's the problem there? Obviously, meron mga ballots na binodoktor, di ba? So what they did, they came in there, they obviously with that legacy system, it took weeks to count. 125 million, obviously, it took weeks to count that. They tried it in a particular sort of segment of that voters population to cover 25 million votes naman, and their experiment was successful. So immutable election results in hours instead of weeks, securing paper-based votes on-chain, and faster tamper-proof reporting system. So they didn't start out immediately, okay, ito yung ginagawa ng agency, ginagawa nila, oy, blockchain agad, di ba? This was hybrid. They still have that system of paper, but the picture ng paper mo, pipicturean nila yung votes ng presinto. Lalagay nila sa blockchain immediately. After 2 days up, wala nang magbibigay sa akin ng mga paper, picture, whatever niya. Kasi after 2 days, you know, the risk of people, diba, tampering, etc. gets higher. So what they did with their process is, oh, sige, after 2 days, wala na yan. Pasok ko na agad sa blockchain. Immutable, decentralized, distributed, no cheating, no hacking. They did 25 million votes in a few hours, right? And so this already, national elections to ng Indonesia, 2019, 2018. All right. Now, these are more parang experimental but exotic, but also quite interesting, right? So this is in Japan. A friend of mine actually did this. I invited him to talk to the DICT before. They're called Play Mining DEA, but what they do is gamification. Okay, so like I mentioned before, remember, ang median age sa Japan, 49. What's their biggest problem? They're an aging population. We're not an aging population. We're very young. We're very vibrant. They are an aging population. What now is the problem there? The provision of services is hampered. As basic as this. So the big problem is infrastructure maintenance. There are 36 million electricity poles across Japan. If you have an aging population, you want to maintain these poles. Anong gagawin mo? Alangan mag-fly ka dito ng lahat ng Pilipino, padalin mo, oh, come to Japan, right? Doesn't work that way, right? So what they did was they gamified the delivery of the service. Have the population be involved. You fractionalize the work. You turn it into real-world quests. I don't know if you guys remember, there was a game before called Pokemon Go. right? You would go to your camera, you'd go around, you'd take pictures, real time. They would make the same thing for electricity poles in Japan. Now they have tokens obviously to incentivize you. So when you do a particular quest, you get rewarded, and then you can convert that into tokens that you can buy services and goods for. So you take a picture, you compete with people, and then you get rewards. They gamified it using blockchain technology by and so that they partnered with their version of Meralco, TEPCO, diba? And they were able to solve that problem through these innovative solutions. Okay, so this is another one, waste sorting, right? They also have a token, but this is a mix of a bunch of other technologies. So it's, if you think about these things, it's never just one technology. Usually it's a mix of other technologies, but this one is a mix of robotics, AI, etc. Waste sorting, again, what's the problem? Konti yung tao sa Japan, diba? Waste, maraming waste. Japan is very much big on recycling. You could be in the Philippines playing a game. Alam niyo yung game, parang Fruit Ninja, ganyan. And then you're sorting recycling. You're actually doing it, and a robot is doing it in Japan. And then you're rewarded based on that game, right? And these are things that are already live and being tested in Japan. Okay, a number of other countries that do this, like Finland is doing it to track taxes, Sweden for receipts, Estonia for record keeping. So the thing about, if you think about tokens, kasi one of the use cases also that is being explored is how you can revolutionize the provision of aid money, dole outs. Naalala niyo yung mga 4-piece pera. Isipin mo ngayon, if you are given not just fiat money or peso, you're given a token. I don't know, let's call it DAP token. That DAP token, you can use that to purchase everything, except you can't use it for wedding. You can't use it for sabong. You can't use it for gambling. You have to program it. It's programmed so that it's usable only for the provision of basic services. And these are things that are very doable and are being done in other countries too. Okay. All right. So the Philippines naman, we are experimenting with this too. CBDC, Central Bank Digital Currencies. The BSP actually has a pilot on this already. So before, when I was looking at it, they were still studying it, but now they want to apply it to our payment system. Right? So what that does is almost real time. It solves a lot of our problems. Alam niyo yung payment rails natin sometimes, di ba? InstaPay, parang, oh, nagpadala ako dito, hindi gumana, di ba? PesoNet. A lot of those things may be solved by this. So they're exploring it, but they're exploring it in the wholesale level, meaning institutional level, not the retail, not us, right? So, okay, so this is what I was talking about. This is our community, the Web3 gaming community. What this also revolutionized is, so if you look at these numbers, a lot of gamers are in the Philippines. The Philippines loves gaming. This is well documented. As in, like, there's a study called Meltwater, We Are Social. And if you look at the studies there, you just do a Control F, find. Philippines, saan tayo palagi sa top 10? We are top in social media. We love social media. We love going on Facebook, looking at TikTok, etc. But we also love gaming, regardless of the age. We love to play games. Web3 gaming is an aspect that utilizes blockchain technology. What we did here was it also revolutionizes the way you raise funds. Mabilis eh. Mabilis mag-raise funds. So nung Odette, during the height of, crypto markets height, maraming tao had a lot of money, but we also raised a lot of money for Odette. We raised more than $1 million for Odette. And we were also able to distribute that for typhoon relief, right? Now, when you hear the word Web3, it's just a version of the web that also is based on this technology. Okay, I think medyo info overload na tayo. But if you think of Web3, ganito lang iisipin nyo. Web 1, if you remember dati AOL, naalala nyo yun? It was read. You go there, you read only. Diba? Read lang. Web 2 is where we're at now. Read and write. Okay? Read, and then I post a picture of my cat, and then selfie with my mom. Hello, whatever. But I'm also giving you all my data. Read, and then write. Web 2. That's where we're at now. Web 3 is where we're going. Okay, so it's a decentralized version of the internet. If you think about it, does anybody know how much Facebook makes a year out of your data? Guess. There's a study that came out, $900. Do you get any of that $900, guys? There was a study in the UK that they said $900 Facebook gets from each person. Okay, so who's rich? I think Mark Zuckerberg is rich. I don't see any of that $900, right? Ang sabi nga sa study na yun, in the UK, $250 lang, masaya na ako eh. I-share mo yung data niya, $250, masaya na ako dyan. We don't get any of that. Now, if you think about in the industrial age, the age before this age, that makes zero sense. Ang input mo into the factory, laging may bayad yan. Gagawa ako ng gulong, gagawa ako ng metal. Ang input natin into the factory that is Facebook is free. We do not share any of that, but Mark Zuckerberg owns an island in a couple of countries. You get what I'm saying? Web3 enables us to be decentralized. We get to harvest and share in the value that's created, that we create that data. And it's actually happening now. Decentralized social media, if you're curious, that's happening now. So we actually have a Web3 association. If you're interested, you can join us. We can teach you about it. We can teach you about like what this technology, where this is going. We have a website, w3a.com.ph. You can join us and we're leading you there. And then if you're interested, just visit it, right? But Web3 is a decentralized internet where you, the user, share in the value that's created in the internet. Right now, all of the Web2 companies own that value. Google owns that value. Have you ever wondered why it's become so crazy that sometimes I'm just talking and then I see my Facebook ad and sasabihin ko, pare, ito yung pinag-uusapan natin ngayon lang, oh. You get what I'm saying? They are selling your data, and this is a known fact. That's why when data leaks happen, they get fined millions and even billions of dollars, because that $1 billion fine, that's not even a dent in what they're making from your data, right? So Web3 is the future, and that's where we're aiming for. How do you participate in that? You get tokens, you get wallets. Imagine a wallet, papasok ka sa website. Teka lang, anong share ko dyan? Sige, share ko yung pangalan ko. Address ko. Sige, share ko yan. Oh, bayaran mo ako. Teka, wala. Hindi, nothing's free, right? Okay, so you get that in tokens. That's how Web3 works. Okay. I wrote a book about blockchain. If you're interested, you can also buy that. But it's just because I get tired of telling people what this is. So I'm just like, okay, buy my book. But if you're interested, we can talk more about it. Then I'd like to speak more to you guys at the DAP. And it's really my mission to educate everyone in the industry.